It has said polite notice. That's what we need here. Polite notice. No flashing lights. You ready? Good evening and welcome to the Monday, January 22nd, 2024 regular meeting of the Weaverville Town Council. The first item tonight is actually a public hearing regarding proposed code amendments, chapters 2 and 20. And Attorney Jackson, would you please describe those code amendments?
Yes, sir, we're happy to. So the planning board has been working. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight's public hearing is on some proposed text amendments to Code Chapter 20 and also to Code Chapter 2 related to several regulations, including places of gatherings and home occupations, and some new regulations concerning conservation subdivisions and fees in lieu of sidewalk construction. All of these items were a part of the comprehensive land use plan priorities, some of which were in last year's priorities, and then a few of them were in this year's priorities as number one. The planning board has reviewed the current regulations and the proposed text amendments and submitted 3 separate favorable recommendations, which all concluded that the proposed regulations are consistent with the town's comprehensive land use plan, reasonable, and in the best interest of the town. I will note that the public hearing was duly advertised as required by North Carolina law and our code. And so the public hearing is an opportunity for town council to receive public input on these proposed amendments. Your cover sheet says to Code Chapter 20, which is largely true. There is one small amendment to Code Chapter 2 as well.
Does anyone have any questions of the attorney? So this is a public hearing, and we do have one person who signed up to speak on this issue, Jeff McKenna. Jeff, I think you know the rules.
I think so. Well, it's kind of fun being on this side. Jeff McKenna, 30 O Street. I just got one comment. Obviously been involved in a lot of the dialogue in the past on putting that together. The one area that I've got some potential concern, and it really gets into the LDG topic you've got tonight, the fee in lieu of for sidewalks. Just want to make sure council's being real careful on applying this in the future, because the big direction's been trying to build sidewalks everywhere so people can get around. And I encourage you to be careful of, waiving that in certain circumstances lightly, because it's really hard to go back and create that, even though we're going to get the money and it's escrowed. People get busy, the town gets busy, and it's easiest to do it right up front. And I know there's some, apparently there's some pushback by DOT in some cases, like on this one, because they wanted to connect with something. And that makes sense, but it just seems like there ought to be a way around that so that that particular project doesn't get built with no sidewalks. And presumably you've got people there that have less access to transportation, and now they can't walk anywhere. I think that'd be a real shame. So that was it, just some encouragement on being real careful with that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the only person who signed up to speak at the public hearing. Is there anyone else who wants to have a last chance at the opportunity?
Does not look like there are any folks online, and we have not received any written comments in advance of tonight's hearing either.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, no more comments, then I'm calling this public hearing closed. Next item up is the approval of tonight's agenda. There is one adjustment. Item 7G, water committee request for 75 Cole Road has been pulled from the agenda. So are there any other adjustments to the agenda, or is there a motion to approve the agenda with that adjustment?
I'm making a motion to approve.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Just to remind everyone, it is our duty to avoid both conflicts of interest and the appearances of conflicts. Does any member have any known conflict of interest or appearance of such with respect to matters on tonight's agenda? Good deal. The next item up is item 4, the consent agenda. And Manager Coffey, would you take us through the items in the consent agenda, please?
Absolutely. Thank you and good evening. Beginning on page 19, you have December 12th workshop minutes, followed by page 22, you have the beginning of December 18th regular meeting minutes. Then you have your monthly tax report and request for refunds and releases there. Beginning on page 26, you'll see that we're at 73% collection rate, which is typically where we would be at this time of year. Page 32, you have a budget amendment form for roughly $1,288 dollars in donations to go toward the community center. And this is where we have typically been putting those funds. These will go towards anything in relationship to the community center, the rec complex, any of that project. Page 36, we have water line. Did I skip one? I'm sorry. Yeah, 34. Police budget amendment. This is for $779.50 for Cops for Kids. And then also to appropriate $12,700 from the sale of property on Gov Deals for a 2014 Dodge Charger and a 2016 Dodge Charger that we sold on Gov Deals to go to the police department to help maintain their fleet. Page 36, you have a water line acceptance and authorization for staff level approval for Greenwood Park Phase 3. We would ask that you would accept the water line extension and related improvements for Greenwood Park Phase 3 into the town's water system, subject to staff level approval by the town manager, town attorney, and public works director, and set the repair guarantee at $10,000. Beginning on page 38, you have the current lease. Beginning of this agenda item is to discuss the lease agreement for the Dry Ridge Historical Museum. As you all know, we're in a lease that is due to expire in September. We need to give them notice as of March 1 if we would like to renegotiate that. Town attorney and I do have some areas where we would like to potentially renegotiate the lease with them, and so we would like for you to give us the authority to go ahead and give them notice of intent to terminate the existing lease, but to renegotiate a new one. Page 46, you have the beginning of an agenda item whereby we're asking that you authorize the attached resolution and MOA with the North Carolina League of Municipalities. This is so that the league can come in and do a cyber assessment for us. This is a free to us assessment, and is in addition to our Epsilon assessments that Epsilon takes care of for us regularly. We would ask that you approve both of those. Then on page 78, beginning on page 78, we're asking that Town Council approve appointment of the mayor and Weaverville resident Jennifer Young to be appointed to fill the Town of Weaverville's positions on its local Firefighters Relief Fund Board of Trustees. And then finally, on page 88, you have the beginning of two proclamations. One is proclaiming Arbor Day in Weaverville as April 26th, and then also another proclamation recognizing the month of February as Black History Month in Weaverville. That is all of the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments about the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Next item up is item 5, the town manager's report. Manager Coffey, would you give us your report?
Absolutely. Page 90, is the beginning of the town manager's report, monthly report. Just to real briefly go over these, we did have a workshop recently on all things water, and so you all have heard this, but I wanted to make sure that the public is aware of these sources of revenue. We did receive a $15 million appropriation through the state's Drinking Water Resource and Wastewater Reserve Fund. Do want to remind us all that this is, we will not receive $450,000 of this, as the state, as they often do, is keeping 3% of that $15 million for administrative costs. Then the second one is we have received notice that the funding that we requested through Congressman Edwards' office that we have received that funding as well. And we do want to thank the congressman for his advocacy for the town in receiving that appropriation. Both of those will go towards the water treatment plant expansion. And then finally, an additional request that we submitted on January 10th for another $4 million. Our goal is to try to get all the money we can for this expansion, and thereby reducing impact on water rates as well as fund balance in the water fund if possible. So we did request $4 million in funding through the Congressman Edwards' office through the Water Resources Development Act. We had a very quick turnaround to get this submitted, but we did get it submitted. I did hear from the Congressman's office today that it has been included, and we should know something about the first stage of the process in a month. So we'll know if it makes it to that step within about a month. So your staff is trying really hard to make sure that we have funding for that project. Do want to let you know that the solar panel project for the Weaverville Fire Department is on a bit of delay. When we budgeted for this project, we did budget a 10% tax reduction that would be available for U.S.-made solar panels. As it turns out, those U.S. certified panels are not available right now, and so we are having to push that out and potentially to the end of summer or early fall. What that means is that will be included for you to approve again within the upcoming budget year as well. Short-term rental listening sessions, just to give you a brief recap. We have completed the 3 short-term rental sessions. The first of which we had around 70 people in attendance. The audio is included on the website for that. The next session was January 9th, and that we did have about 35 participants for that one. That was focused on input from neighbors of short-term rentals. The first one was the general public, and so the audio is available for that second one as well. The third and final input session was held via Zoom last week and was for owners of short-term rentals. We had approximately 20 people, but only 12 to 13 of those were actual short-term rental owners for the session. We had staff and other folks that were participating or listening in, but not participating. So all in all, I think we've gotten some good information from that. And Kayla DeChristina from Land of Sky Regional Council will be back to us in the very near future with her report from those. To give you an update on the Eller Cove Trail Planning Study, I actually did receive the information after this was printed, but I have not had time to review it, and so I think it's going to probably be best that the study be presented to you during a meeting as a separate agenda item. So we're going to ask that happen potentially in February. And Peter Mills, who's the owner and the lead on this project, will be out of the country for a few weeks, and so he won't be back until February. So although we have not had an opportunity to review that in depth, you will have the opportunity in February to hear from him. little bit of information for you. Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition Award was awarded to our Weaverville Police Department. And this is for the department's leadership in the police fleet electrification, and want to recognize and commend Chief Davis, who's not with us tonight, but for his leadership in introducing hybrids initially and then electric vehicles to our fleet. So thank you, Chief, for your forward thinking. Citizens Academy, we have had another tremendous record group of 28 people. Interestingly enough, about half of those are folks that have just moved here in the last 2 to 3 years. Thought that was very interesting information, and I applaud those folks for getting involved in their town at this early stage. Also, just to give you an idea of how many people we have graduated from the program since I've been here, we've had 160 graduates. So this is, or that would include these, and so that's a great accomplishment as far as folks really wanting to be involved and be a part of, or at least learn about their town government. We do have a couple of OSHA consultation visits coming up. These are in relationship to my regular requests that we have consultative visits as opposed to the visits where they come in and start dinging you, for lack of better terminology there. You can ask for consultative visits from them, and they will, then you get about 1.5 years reprieve from them just showing up without you knowing, unless there's a significant injury or death or that kind of thing. So we do ask for this on a regular basis for them to come in and give us consultation. The Martin Luther King Jr. observance, want to thank Sarah Myers, our recreation coordinator, for being the lead on sponsoring a community service event for trash pickup. We had 26 people participate in that. Also, we hosted the traveling Green Book Project exhibit at the community center and worked with the Dry Ridge Museum to host a series of display cases honoring Weaverville's Black history. So thank you to Sarah for that. Pickleball open house, another big thanks to Sarah, as well as the Ad Hoc Recreation Committee. We'll be hosting a pickleball open house on Thursday the 25th at 6. And you see just a small screenshot of that flyer. This is to just get information regarding the pickleball courts and rules and that type of thing. So the final, I need to add this. This is at the request of the Weaverville Police Department, and you have a copy of some slides that were developed by Officer Anderson, who is in the audience back in, I believe he's back there on the back row. So I'm going to make this quick and basically point you to the second page, slide 3, and the very first model option there. We have the opportunity to request Governor Crime Commission, Governor's Highway Safety Grant to add the solar portion. So there'd be the solar portion above the sign, our current signs, as well as that blinking light below the signs. We have the potential to request a grant for that, or we can request a grant for that. The total would be $54,000, and all of this is in the document that you have there. The total would be $54,000, with $46,750 being federal funds, and then there would be a town match if we receive the grant. We would need to enforce this grant, provide the obvious enforcement for crosswalk safety. But the reason that I'm bringing this to you tonight is we do have a grant deadline of the 31st, and so I wanted to get your opinions and thoughts about whether or not you would like for us to proceed in this manner.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Am I on? Do I have to push a button?
You're on.
Okay. Is this similar to the ones that are down on Riverside? That they don't blink all the time, they only blink when somebody's in the crosswalk or needs to go through the crosswalk?
I'm not
Do
sure
these-
what's on Riverside, but are you referring to the stop signs that are down there?
Down on
in the
the-
Arts District?
Down next to New Belgium, the river.
Yeah.
They have these nice ones now
Mm-hmm.
that I've noticed that are very popular. They don't bother anybody unless somebody is going through the crosswalk.
That is correct, is my understanding. Officer Anderson had come up
Not
and.
blinking all the
and-
time, are
No,
they?
they don't blink all the time, I don't think.
Come on up. Do they blink all the time?
No.
No.
Officer Chris Anderson, he's been with our department for 7 years and he's the head of the traffic.
Thank you. No, it's a push button. What is quoted here is the push button system, and they are individually set up with a battery and solar panel on top, but they are just on push button. They're not consistently supposed to be going when people are in the crosswalk.
Thank goodness.
On both sides of the street.
Yes, the radio transmission between them,
Yeah.
and so they do reciprocate on both sides.
And they only blink for like 15 seconds or 30 seconds?
I would have to double check on the time. It's, but it is only for a certain amount of time.
They do have these in Black Mountain, and I've talked to the manager over there, and he said they've had really good experience with them. They're not intrusive like our bright green
Can we
signs
get
are.
rid of the bright green signs if we have the flashes?
It only flashes for a short period of time.
But what about the signs? Can we get rid of them?
I wish we could, but unfortunately, that's a
It's a
DOT.
DOT road.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
So
will tell you,
when you said we have to provide the enforcement for crosswalks, what did you mean?
the grant just requires to make
Oh, you
sure
said
that
we're
we are
gonna-
enforced,
police
yes.
are watching,
Yes.
okay.
Right. Yes, the grant, there are certain requirements in, when we sign off on these federal or state grants that we have to say that we will enforce them, which we do anyway, but.
Right.
I think this moves us also forward with the active Weaverville plan. It's another thing, and there's a grant you can apply for, you might get.
It does, and actually, the Active Weaverville plan, thank you for bringing that up, does mention that for crosswalks in town and as a recommendation, and so it would be a positive, and this would not be, you see the certain areas where it would be recommended in the pictures there. You can see those areas. I will tell you that I believe that this sign, or this blinking light is much less than the one on the right side of it, the model on the right side of it there on that slide number 3 on page 2. We have to apply for the grant initially, and then if we do get the grant, I would then come to you and ask you for a budget amendment for the town's portion, but we do have to request the grant first before we go forward. If you'll look at slide 12 is kind of a recap of the request and the recommendation.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you, Officer Anderson.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of the manager's report?
So do we need a motion right now to have you apply for this, or?
If I could just
head
get
nod, or-
consensus, head nod is
Everybody
fine.
nod, apply for the grant. Apply for the grant.
Okay.
I just would like to add a couple of things. We're very pleased that we have an additional $1 million raised for our water treatment plant. Thank you to Congressman Edwards' efforts. That brings to $16 million, the amount that we've raised to pay for our water plant, so no debt to build a new water plant. And I also want to thank Congressman Edwards for getting some money, but also Weaverville was the largest request he made for federal funds. It's not so easy to get federal funds for local projects, so thank you for that. And also, we were supposed to have our strategic planning retreat this past weekend, but unfortunately, because of the pleasant weather we have, that has been postponed and has now been rescheduled for Saturday, February 24. So come on out for that. Next item is general public comments, and I've got a couple of folks who want to speak. Paul Corelli.
So, as you know, the Florida Avenue situation.
Paul, I mean to interrupt, but can you give us your name and your
Yes,
business?
Paul Carielli, Hoppy Trees owner, 7 Florida Avenue, 5 Norfolk Place, Asheville residence. So, we've had a prolonged effect on Florida Avenue of the one-way situation. Over the last 3 years, I've accounted for about 9,000 hours looking through my windows as an owner of the building to see what has been happening there with activity and everything. I think shutting down the parking spaces, if not the whole street, obviously we've talked about this, are options. It is in the best interest of everybody, I think, for businesses, pedestrians, tourists, and the town to evaluate the situation, as it is becoming more and more active. Now, we have 3 breweries, even though Leveler is not on Florida Avenue. There are 3 breweries plus my bar, La Cache Boutique, and businesses now that have been gaining a lot of activity on Florida Avenue. So I believe it's in our best interest to evaluate the situation moving forward. So as Downtown Asheville Zone, I provided some pictures to show some activity of pedestrians. Some of those pictures show people literally moving, as we have removed Well Bread Bakery's seats. But last spring, people have literally moved their tables to the other side of the street, people wanting to sit in the sun. What the pandemic has shown us is that people want to sit outside. And Main Street, Weaverville, has the elongated sidewalks. A lot of the businesses have lighting, bigger sidewalks, seating, the awnings over the businesses, and Florida Avenue has none of this. So as more and more attention has been paid now to Florida Avenue, I believe it is time to evaluate the situation moving forward. There are a few options. It's shutting the whole street down completely, which could be a logistical nightmare and would have to have a lot of talks. It's just simply removing those 3 parking spaces, as some of the pictures show, during a Saturday at 5 p.m. During the summer, all 3 parking spots are empty, proving we really don't need those spots. So if we turn that into a pedestrian walkway or seats and tables, this can be the future to make things safer for everybody. Pedestrians giving us what they want, limiting liabilities to the town of Weaverville, which we have not had any issues, thank God, of anybody getting hit by a car. But I can take, and I have more pictures, of people in motorized wheelchairs. Oh, here we go. Well, I was gonna go full New York. But that's the gist, and hopefully we can have future discussions about this moving forward.
Thank you very much. And we certainly have discussed this before, the options of either just closing Florida Avenue to car traffic altogether. It's only a block long anyway. I can tell you that one of the items on our strategic planning workshop for last weekend, which has now been rescheduled, was to consider redesigning public use spaces of downtown, and certainly how we can fix the problems on Florida Avenue will be one of those. So I hate to put you off, but we will be discussing this very item at our strategic planning workshop
Thank you so
next
much
month.
for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next, excuse me, Jeff McKenna. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Jeff McKenna, 30 O Street. Just 2 quick things, really tagging on to what the gentleman said there a minute ago. The Active Weaverville Committee, we've had a lot of conversation about just that, of being more flexible with Main Street and making things more pedestrian. A lot of really good ideas coming out of that committee, so we look forward to a chance to talk to you all about that in the planning group. The other thing I just want to mention and thank him, actually, the mayor last month put out in the newsletter kind of a list of accomplishments of the council and the town staff last year. And it was a pretty long list if you looked at it and go, holy cow, how'd they get all that done? You know, things like the federal funding and everything. One thing he didn't mention was we were able to do all that, you were able to do all that without raising taxes. And since I've been involved with council, I can't remember the last time we actually raised taxes. There were years where we lowered them to make things revenue neutral. And I think that's going to become an important priority for you as a council that you want to consider. In the short-term rental meetings that I attended, there were a number of younger people that talked about how it's really tough to get established here, just economically. And I think you need to consider the tax burden as a tool that you're really strategic about, because you can't do anything about the county. People are always going to be paying two different buckets of taxes. But I think you want to start moving that demographic of being the richest area a little more to the middle, to make it easier for younger people to move here and get established. So, as budget season comes up, which it won't be that far away, please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on now to item 7, discussion and action items. The first item up is an update from our MSD representative, Doug Dirth.
Good evening.
The first part of this update will actually be kind of a recap for the MSD system in Buncombe County was established in the mid-1960s via state statute, and it has been expanding on a regular basis over time. The composition of the board, which has been in effect for quite some time, is 14 members, 3 members representing Buncombe County, 3 representing the city of Asheville, 1 member each of the other municipalities, so Weaverville, Woodfin, Black Mountain, Montreat, Biltmore Forest, as well as a separate seat for the Woodfin Water District, sort of the lakes and things. The most recent change was just a few years ago with the acceptance of the King Creek District into our system, which is actually in northern Henderson County. And they have 2 representatives. One of whom is a member of the Board of Commissioners. The board further has 5 standing committees which meet on an as-needed basis. The full board meets typically the 3rd Wednesday of any given month, and those are, by definition, public sessions. So the 5 standing committees are planning, personnel, finance, capital improvement program, and right-of-way. And I sit on the planning and personnel committees. The current budget is $56.86 million. It's not a small enterprise. There's a staff of about 151, 52. There are, the system serves 42,000 customers. That's residential, commercial, industrial. This past year, you will notice a 5% rate increase. The typical history in recent years has been a 3 or 4 or 5% rise each year, so as to have steady, but not put off changes and then all of a sudden have to play catch up on a particular basis to get everybody's attention. So it's somewhat similar to where our water system is. You might be interested to know that the 10-year capital improvement program is currently funded at a rate of $531 million. The general manager is Tom Hardy. He's quite a veteran. He's been there for 20 years. And he is currently, we extended his contract in July of 22 for 4 years, and that's to be his glide path. He's expecting to retire at 26. He has indicated that he's willing to serve another year or so if necessary, but his plan is to depart in 2026. some of the main things on this matter, in the meantime, is succession planning. And he has good candidates to consider, and we'll be working on that. There have been two recent MSD projects in town that you might have noticed last year. Fairly small projects. One is a couple of 500 feet or so down on South Main Street near the intersection of Ridge Creek Road. And then there was also a lengthy project on Cherry Street up on North Main. There's a fair amount of the budget, actually, their budget goes to updating, replacing legacy systems. At any given time, with all the development we've had around here, and it attracted the kind of things that you're seeing in the water system as well. I noticed talking about Greenwood Park, talking about a couple of projects on Pleasant Grove, as the water system is influenced by these developments. One of the with it, obviously, is the sewer system as well. So the new thing that I want to bring to you this evening, I think you have the handout, and this was just discussed and presented at the board meeting last Wednesday. There are two pumping stations that affect us, appropriately named Weaverville Pumping Station 1 and Weaverville Pumping Station 2. So this handout addresses a major rehab of Pumping Station 1 and the associated piping system that connects it with the main plant down on Riverside Road. This is located, you may not be aware, Hidden Falls Road, Hidden Falls Lane, which is a private lane off of Newstone. So this, as you can see, I don't want to belabor this, take this and read it at your leisure. The system is good 40 years old, and it's had a couple of significant upgrade projects in that intervening time. Right now, the capacity, along considering commitments, along with current use, is just about tapped out. So this project, which has been approved by the board to the tune of $20.5 million, which will start this year and be completed within 22 months. The idea is to replace the existing 12-inch line with a 24-inch line, and out of a better material that will be chemically resistant and so forth, and easier to maintain. So the reason for this, other than the fact that the system is just about tapped out, if you look on the second page, slide 3, that schematic there, the idea of the upgrade is to serve the area. You see the town limits in yellow and the two-tone green above that. That is one of the 4 or 5 areas in the county that the county master plan and the MSD master plan see as future growth areas. And so that's bordered by, from the town limits, just about the town limits, west of the highway, to the Madison County line, and westward almost to the river. And I think if you notice that this development, with this upgrade, is going to directly relate to things that are coming to you. Very simple. Yes. You can study those as if the engineering intrigues you at your own leisure. Are there any questions
So Doug, just, you know, it's also, that area is also one of the growth areas identified by this council as well. So, so basically, to reduce this will dramatically increase the capacity for development north of town, essentially.
Yeah, essentially doubles.
Yes.
Doubles
Right.
the system that pumping station is.
And this is a 2-year project to completion.
Yeah, between now and August, they will be doing all the administrative work, acquiring right of way, and that sort of thing. Construction is going to start after August. For about 20
Good deal. Any other questions for Mr. Durst? Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. And thank you for serving Weaverville on the MSD board. Next item up is the French Broad River MPO. And remind us, Vice Mayor, what MPO stands for?
Municipal Planning Organization.
Okay, and Vice Mayor Cordell will give us an update on that.
So, one of the things that I've discovered about being on the MPO is they use so many acronyms. And so you have to keep a cheat sheet next to you when you go to a meeting, because then they say the SNP and the TIP and the TCC, and you don't have a clue when the first couple of months you're there what they're talking about. But I wanted to give you a copy of this, but if you're interested in it, I'll definitely get it. My color printer went out, so you don't have a copy tonight. But this is an example of, with the MPO, they look at the growth and the other challenges that's expected to face the region over the next 25 years. So the other thing that I figured out with being on the board, when they say we should hear soon, and I ask them, when do you think we'll hear? Within about 2 years, they say. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, one of the things I'm also beginning to realize is that a lot of the things that I vote on now might happen in my lifetime. So, some of the things you may have already heard, and if not, you've read it in your agenda. But the Weaverville Woodfin Greenway Connection Study was approved in 2024. That means they're gonna hire a consultant to provide recommendations of potential alignments to be able to connect the Woodfin Greenway with something that will happen in Weaverville. We call that right now on our plan, the Rims Creek Greenway. The study for the Rims Creek Greenway, this study, they're gonna look at all alignment options. That would include coming along future I-26 or NC 251. Anything that's reasonable, they're gonna look at, and then that's what they come back and present. The Rims Creek Greenway, as we know, it goes from Quarry Road to Carpin Field on Rims Creek. And it would require a 20% match. The current projection is $4.8 million. That's current as of now. But the preliminary engineering report has been delayed until 2029. So as we all know, unless something comes of this and we can apply for something else once we get this report, because if this comes back in this 2024, it gets done, then 2025, we hear something, and then if there's a possibility to move that 2029 forward, we could try. Another thing to talk to you about is park and ride. So the carpooling locations, we currently have one here. It's at the Black Creek exit. You know, many of you probably never used it, but I've definitely driven by it to see if it's being used, and it is. The one in Mars Hill is full and overflowing, and people are actually allowed to park on this other guy's private property. The park and ride that they've identified here is a new one at New Stock Road and possibly one at Bowles Cove Road, which is off the Barnardsville Highway, and then Lower Flat Creek Road in Marshall. So that's the three that have been identified in our area that I thought you might want to know about. Another thing that we've talked about is the EV charging stations. There was a grant that it was available, and it went out to bid twice. The reason is because they only got one bidder the first time and one bidder the second time. And when I say that, it's Ingalls Markets wants to partner with the North Carolina and work on that, getting that grant. So they have agreed that they will be adding EV charging stations to 5 Ingalls locations: Waynesville, Brevard, Bryson City, Franklin, and Murphy. So I think that's pretty cool. We also had this long presentation, but it was probably the most excellent one that I've heard in the whole year I've been there. It's the Wildlife Crossing Study. It was a presentation that talked about all of the area that we hear about. And I thought I had a map somewhere, but there's this, it's part of Madison County, Buncombe County, Transylvania, Hendersonville. So that's the MPO area. And our 4.4 miles from like Madison County to about here, we have not had many crashes due to animals crossing the road. So we're very low on the need for reflective fencing or the tunnels that go under the road or the bridges that go over the road. There are many, like out on I-40, that need that much worse than we do. But what the interesting factor that I got from this was on I-26, around the Barnersville exit, in the year of 2019, there was about 26,000 cars a day going through there. By 2045, they're projecting to be 45,000 cars going through there. We already have more than 50,000 cars that are going on I-26 just off of our Weaverville exit. In recent news, you may have heard this on WLOS, but the NCDOT was recently awarded money to begin an environmental document study for the purpose of the possibility of having passenger rails return to asphalt. That doesn't mean that it will happen, it just means that there will be a study that will happen. And if the study is good, and it's a possibility that the land could be used without it affecting, environmentally, and if they think that people will ride this, then it's ungodly. Like, I want to say 121 million or something. But anyway, it's a possibility that if the study comes through and says, yes, we want to do that, then the federal government would probably help with grants to bring something like that back to the asphalt area. One of the things that affects us directly was the NCDOT staff actually came about and said that they hear a lot of things about needs on Rims Creek Road for modernization. And so they have asked for that to be added to the business, to the MPO plan for next year to be looked at. And that's the one that I was laughing about when I said, well, how soon will we hear? And the soon was within, 15 months to 2 years. So I don't have an update on that one right now, but I'm really hoping that that plan gets approved and that it could happen in the next 5 years. Possible opportunities for us, Selena, is the two things that I saw coming up now is there's something called Safe Streets for All Regions. And nobody has had a safe street study. So even though there's money out there, like our action plan that we did for pedestrian, and I asked if that one could count, and it can't. It has to be a safe street study. So if we could figure out how to get a grant or something to help us do a safe street study, then there's money out there to help with making the streets safer. The other one is Safe Routes to School, which helps improve with students being able to bike and walk to school safely. And they have hired a new coordinator at the Land of Sky. And I'm probably going to talk to her sometime in the next couple of weeks and invite her out to walk up and down, because I know a lot of kids my age that didn't ride the bus when they were growing up. They actually walked to school all the time here in Weaverville. And I know that some of the kids growing up in my neighborhood now, their parents walk them to school. So if we had safe routes, I think that would be nice too. And the other things are just things that are happening, not necessarily in our area, but things that you drive by all the time. So these are projects that are going on. The future I-26 widening, you know that the bridge is being built out here over Rims Creek. It's projected to be done by the spring of 2027. the I-26 connector is happening. Sweden Creek is going to be widened on half of it, from, I'm trying to think, the far end is not gonna be, not at the airport road, but starting at Mills
Gap.
Yes, there. And the Riverside Drive modernization, they just finished a crosswalk across a bridge. And then the Swananoa River Road modernization, North River Arts District, Greenway, and Weaverville Road sidewalks. Those are the current things that are definitely funded and going on forward. And then the last thing that I will say is that on Thursday of this past week, when I was at my meeting, Jerry Behan, the mayor of Woodfin, is retired. And so that when you retire, you have to be an elected official to be on the MPO board. So there is another board that is called the prioritization board. They call it the nitty-gritty board because it only has 7 members on it. 4 of them are from the technical committee and 3 of them are from the MPO. And so Matt Wechtel from Madison County nominated me to be on this board to represent our north end. And so I accepted that and they voted on it. And so I'll now be going the first Wednesday of every month to meet on this board and represent us on the north end.
Excellent. Are there any questions for Ms. Cordell? Thank you very much, ma'am, and thanks for serving Weaverville on the MPO. Next item up is item C, the Woodfin, speaking of, the Woodfin-Weaverville interlocal agreement for Greenway Connector. Manager Coffey, can you give us an update?
Yes, sir. I have brought this to you before in the form of a town manager's report and bringing it to you tonight because we need to take action on signing this interlocal agreement between Woodfin and Weaverville for the Greenway Connector feasibility study. You have a copy of the interlocal agreement, and this interlocal agreement, the total funding is for the study is $120,000, which includes $96,000 of that in federal highway administration funding, but also requires a local share of $24,000 to be split between Weaverville and Woodfin. Woodfin will serve as the administrator of this grant, but we need to go ahead and approve a budget amendment, which you have there in your packet on page 100. For the other $12,000, I've recommended that come out of fund balance at this point in time, and would recommend that you authorize me to go ahead and execute the interlocal agreement, and also approval of that budget amendment.
Are there any questions about this project? No? Is there a motion to approve the agreement for the Greenway Connector with Woodfin?
Motion to approve.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Next item up is item D, annexation petition for 9 Pleasant Grove Road. Attorney Jackson, can you give us an update on this one?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pleasant Grove of WNC LLC is the owner of about 10 acres located at and near 9 Pleasant Grove Road. They previously have town council's approval on a water allocation for a 40-unit townhouse project. So that water allocation was re-upped in, I want to say, May of last year, and it did condition the water commitment on annexation into the town. And so this is the follow-up to that, where they are presenting you with the annexation petition. With that, you're going to see an underlying zoning designation request of R3. I will say that it has to be zoned, but they are claiming vested rights so that they can proceed with their county-approved development plan, which is the 40 townhouse units. And the first, as you know, the first step in the annexation process is to adopt a resolution that directs your town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of this annexation and to send it to the planning board for zoning review and recommendation. So that resolution is in your packet.
Does anyone have any questions about this resolution?
This will be a contiguous annexation. The map is on on the screen. There is a tiny little parcel that does go with this that looks like it's between the orange, which is the town limits, and this blue highlighted provision, but it is contiguous to the limits.
And you all might recall that, I guess they originally requested a water commitment from us, and then they didn't build in time, so they had to come back for an extension. At that point, we said, great, but you have to get annexed, and so now they're actually doing that, so. Is there a motion to pass the resolution for this annexation petition?
Motion to pass.
Thank you. Any, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Next item, item E, annexation petition for 6 Pleasant Grove Road, right across the street. And again, Attorney Jackson.
Yes, sir. This literally is right across the street from 9 Pleasant Grove Road. This is the first bit of paperwork that the town is seeing on this. It is a voluntary annexation petition for about 6 acres. What is planned for this, and the only reason we know that is that Mr. Pennell in his office has a water commitment request for 50 townhouses on this property. 2 separate projects, 2 different owners, just happening at the same time. The water application you're going to see as the next agenda item, so I'm going to save questions for that for Mr. Pennell. But same step that you just took for 9 Pleasant Grove Road, we're asking you to take on this one. This is presented to you as a satellite annexation request because without the 9 Pleasant Grove, it is not connected to the primary municipal limits. If 9 Pleasant Grove Road comes in, then this is contiguous. And that's important only because the state law does limit you to 10% of your primary limits. Only 10% of that can be satellite. And so we do, Mr. Eller does a good job, and the GIS system that we now have makes it a lot easier to calculate, to just keep track of all of those satellites, because we have to just make sure that we're not growing our satellites illegally. And this is well under.
Okay. And so they made a zoning request at this point?
Yes, sir. I skipped over that. They are also, because they are proposing some townhouses, they're requesting R3. Councilmember Vice Mayor Cordell actually asked a good question. Typically, the town zoning on that is 8 per acre. In which my math says that's 48 units, and they're requesting 50.
That's right.
The zoning is going to apply on that, and so once they come in, they will be required to play by the town's rules in that regard, and so there may be some slight adjustments on the number of units in this project, but for right now, they're requesting 50 units for water.
Okay. Any questions of the attorney regarding this project? No? So this is the same thing as our previous item, request resolution on the annexation petition, which will then go to the planning board for their recommendations. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a water commitment request for the same piece of property, and Public Works Director Pennell. You're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In a very similar set of circumstances to the 9 Pleasant Grove Road project, the developer of the 6 Pleasant Grove Road project is coming to you with a water commitment request for the water to serve that development. 50 townhouse units at our standard 400 gallons per day is 20,000 gallons per day. That equates to about 1.3% of our well within the ability to serve that. And matter of fact, this request was, came to us when we were preparing for the water workshop that we had earlier this month. And I, just in the interest of putting everything into it that I knew about, I included this project in that forecast. So we've anticipated this and planned for it. In addition to that, we've looked at the request, and we can serve it from the water line that's on Pleasant Grove Road. And so we recommend that you approve this water allocation request, subject to the annexation being approved for the property.
Very good. Any questions of Public Works Director? So to make sure people understand, we would be approving a water request conditional on the annexation happening. Okay. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Next item, we're skipping item 7G. Next up is the action on the code amendments, numbers 2 and 20, which we just had a public hearing on earlier. Does anyone need any more description of these items? If not, is there a motion to approve the code amendments changes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you very much. Yeah. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you very much. Next item up is item I, the LDG Maribel, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, project. This is the fee in lieu of sidewalk construction project, and Planning Director Eller.
Maribel it is, thank you, Mayor and Council. In conversations between NCDOT and LDG, which is the developer of the 171 Monticello Road project that you guys will recall, DOT has informed LDG that they prefer sidewalks not to be constructed until there is a connection to an existing sidewalk. As a result of these conversations, Kimley Horn, which is the civil engineering firm for LDG, has been instructed by DOT to seek a minor modification to the conditional district that governs the property. And that is very specifically for a fee in lieu of sidewalk construction for the front of the 171 Monticello Road property. I'll ask that we all keep in mind and recall that we also have a fee in lieu, funds in place in the conditional district to get from that property over to the intersection of North Crest. Fee in lieu of sidewalk, I just said that, Kimley Horn has provided a sidewalk construction estimate that indicates that the estimated cost of the sidewalk along their Monticello Road frontage comes in at $112,560. Director Peddle and I had the opportunity to meet with the folks from Kimley Horn a couple weeks ago. Director Peddle offered some recommendations to them to add to their already submitted figure that was lower than this, and they did take Mr. Peddle on his recommendation. It is the belief of staff that this can be handled as a minor modification of the conditional district, and we ask the town council tonight consider a fee in lieu of sidewalk construction along the Monticello Road frontage for, again, $112,560.
So just to recap, we've already accepted $150,000 to pay for a sidewalk to be built from this property to the shopping center. And this would now give us an additional $112,000 to build a sidewalk that would connect to that sidewalk across the front of their project. Does anyone have any questions about different?
I do. Page 145, in the middle of the page, G3. When you start looking at the 5 different things that we as the council who voted on this talked to LDG about, you know, you could say that us taking money even twice for sidewalks still doesn't get us where we, in good faith, voted to move forward. Because I know for a fact, me and Andrew and Jeff voted for this based on people being able to get to the Northridge Commons Shopping Center. So this not only talks about sidewalks, it talks about a pedestrian crossing across Monticello. That now, if we take this, the Hornet's Nest comes to us to negotiate with NCDOT to bring a crosswalk there. And traffic or pedestrian crossing signals associated with the above, cost associated with design and construction. There's just a lot here that we asked them to do, that they agreed to do, that is more than sidewalks. It's project management, it's negotiation, it's a lot, it's a crosswalk.
I haven't heard any withdrawing on the LDG side from that bit of it, because they want to be able to get their residents, once they're up and running, they want to be able to get their residents safely across Monticello Road and into that shopping center. So I think what you're talking about is all of the subparts under the pay 150,000. That's really not at issue tonight. What's at issue is the number 2 above that, which was, and it was actually Councilmember Nagel that said, hey, put in the sidewalk in front of your project, in front of your property along your road frontage. And that was the extra bit of sidewalk that was added. What this is gonna do is it's gonna put $112,000 more into the pot of money that can be used to figure it all out. And until I think the town of Weaverville and LGG and DOT sit down and figure out the engineering, how are we gonna do this? We don't know what it's gonna look like, and therefore we're not gonna know where that money really needs to be spent. It's my opinion that this gives greater flexibility to the town to decide, we don't need the sidewalk from your entrance south, is it south?
South, yes.
We don't need that, but what we need is we do need extra money on the north end to actually get folks to North Crest and down into that shopping center.
So you're saying this is definitely not gonna go away? We're still gonna hold this number 3?
Number 3 is done. It is a condition that is not at issue tonight. Number 3, that is a condition of the project. What is at issue is number 2, that where they were obligated to put the sidewalk on their road frontage, all along their road frontage. And what they're saying is that DOT doesn't really like it because it's a sidewalk island, and consistent with the active Weaverville plan and the fee in lieu of sidewalk construction that you just adopted just a minute ago, they're asking for you to say, LDG, pay us the $112,000. We will find a place for sidewalks. My guess is that y'all are gonna try to focus that money in this area, which only makes sense. But you, LDG, do not have to install the concrete sidewalk in front of your project.
But we will, and we will manage it, right?
We will, but we may decide not to put it along the entire frontage. We may decide to focus it in a different area.
Because the idea would be to get them from the entrance of that project to the shopping center. So you really wouldn't need a sidewalk to go in the opposite direction.
And it's going to be up to town council to decide where those sidewalks are going to be built. So I fully expect that you will decide that the $150,000 plus the $112,000 needs to be focused on this particular area. You could decide that you wanted to take the $100,000 of this and build it someplace completely different. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's going to be the case in this, because there is a real need for sidewalks. But it gives you the flexibility to decide exactly where those sidewalks are and what that looks like.
And can you give us any idea of when the meeting with the parties involved here might happen, so we know what the conclusion might be?
Well, I'm going to answer not the question that you just asked, but let me just provide this little bit of update. It's my understanding, because I asked the question of where are they in the process? And because this is an affordable housing project, the funding sources on this are really super complicated and have lots of conditions on them, and they're not allowed to take title to the property until all of the permitting is complete. And so they're wrapping that up. They're waiting on a letter that they were supposed to have either last week or this week from DEQ. And then they had one more that they were waiting on from Montgomery County, with the idea that they should be, now I'm drawing a blank, whether it was mid-March or mid-February. I want to say mid-February. That they think that they're going to have it's either mid-February or mid-March. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. They think that they're ready to close. They've got a closing date scheduled for that, but they've got that little bit of permitting that has to come in first. And then I think at that point, you're gonna see some better engagement, because they're focused right now on getting it to the first finish line, and then the development will begin.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on this project?
Just to see if you could remind us where these monies are kept.
So, good question, and can I answer that? I've worked with Finance Director Dozier on this just to make sure that we are going to be holding these and accounting for these, and they will be coming in as fees. That's why you saw that fee schedule amendment. But they will be accounted for very similarly to how we account for, or a little bit like we count the water line repair guarantee that, like you just approved during your consent agenda for one of the projects. That money is held in account. It's there for your purpose. Yes, it's more equating to like a capital reserve fund for the fire truck. So you're amassing money in a savings account, air quotes, because it's not really a separate savings account, but we are accounting for that. Ms. Dozier will show you, I'm sure, at her quarterly report how much money is in that. And then at the point that sidewalks are proposed, or we need to start spending some of that money, we will be coming back to you to get some approvals and direction.
Very good, thank you.
Any others? Is there a motion then to accept the fee in lieu of sidewalk construction for the LDG project? Move to accept. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you very much. Put that money in the investment fund, Tanya, the stock market. Next up is our quarterly report from planning. So James, don't go away. You're up next.
Here I am. This is also the 2023 year-end report. I'll just hit some of the highlights for us here. There were a total number of 117 zoning permits issued in 2023. I'll ask please that we recall one of my speeches from months ago that the number of permits that are issued isn't necessarily a reflection of the number of units translated to the ground. For instance, 3 of those permits were for 497 units. Always like to have these year-over-year zoning permit comparisons. Former Councilmember Durst spoke earlier tonight to some of the growth that we've experienced. For instance, all the way back in 2014, there were 49 zoning permits issued, and that was with the ETJ, which doubled the surface area of the zoning jurisdiction of the town. The zoning board of adjustment didn't meet during this last quarter, so we don't have anything to report there. Of course, the planning board activity translates immediately to town council following month, or the preceding month. Back in October, the board reviewed and offered recommendations on all of the annexations that were approved. In November, staff was able to provide some information to the board on short-term rentals. And then in December, the board reviewed information and offered recommendation to town council on the public hearing that you had this evening. So, that being said, I'm happy to address anything further.
Are there any questions for Mr. Eller? Thank you, sir. Finance Director Dozier, you're up next with the Finance Quarterly Report.
Good evening. We are halfway through the fiscal year. I have my second quarter report for you tonight. You look at page 157. You'll see our revenues continue to trend upward. There's no real areas of concern here. One thing we are keeping an eye on is our sales tax. Our sales tax and the North Buckham Fire Protection. North Buckham Fire has a small component that's made up of sales tax. Those two categories are very slightly below budget, just about 1%. And we're hearing that across the county. We're hearing that everyone around us is kind of seeing their sales tax numbers coming in a little bit below budget this year. If you recall in the past, our sales tax has just gone up and up, just year after year. But they are predicting that to level out this year, and this upcoming budget year, we might not see the big increases that we've seen in the past. Two small bits of good news. In December, we received the second half of our PAL bill distribution, which came in $14,000 higher than expected, which is unusual. It usually comes in right where they forecast it, or right where they tell us it's going to come in. So that'll be a little more money we can put towards our streets program next year. Interest income remains strong. We're about 8% above budgeted revenues right now, and the rates are holding steady at about 5% on our investment funds. So that's good news for us. On the next page are the revenue and the expenditures by department. Again, no areas of concern there. All the departments are well under budget. Things are going well. Behind that is all the detail by department. If you want to take a look, dive any deeper. We can jump ahead to page 169. That is the capital project fund for the rec complex. And you'll see we've now spent year to date $326,000 on that project. It is coming along nicely. We've got about 23% of our budget left. We will be bringing you a budget amendment soon. Once we get final estimates on the remaining work, we'll be coming to you for hopefully some more budget amendment. Get the final numbers in for these, or for this project. And then on the next two pages are the capital project funds for the plant expansion and the resiliency project. You'll see there's been a little bit of headway there, mostly engineering work. And then finally on page 172, it's the grant project fund for the ARP funds. And now that you have officially decided, as of the workshop last week, that these funds are going to be used towards the water treatment plant expansion, will be coming to you with budget or whatever we need to make that happen. The funds will come out of the grant project into the water fund, or possibly into the capital project fund for the expansion. And that's all I have today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Finance Director? I just gotta say, it's always nice when the Finance Director says there's no areas of concern. So, and she said it twice. Thank you very much, Tony. All right, if there's no other important business come before this board this evening, we are adjourned.